House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden reached an agreement in their debt ceiling negotiations over the weekend, putting forward a spending bill they're calling the Fiscal Responsibility Act. But not all Republicans in Congress are on board, and some say this is a missed opportunity to address our country's chronic spending problems. With the nation approaching $32 trillion in debt, if you won't repair our fiscal house now, when will we? Joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Michael Cloud. He serves on the House Appropriations Committee. He represents the 27th Congressional District of Texas. Congressman Cloud, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you. Good to be back with you.
Now, you've been outspoken against this deal. Tell us why.
Well, this deal isn't the deal that we've been working on, that's for sure. And there's a lot of fuzzy math and kind of some shell games going on with some of the talking points that you see out there. And it's important, that we get a good deal for the American people. We've complained when leftists are in charge and we race toward a fiscal cliff. And then when we get in charge, we jog toward that same cliff and call that success. But that's not going to be what puts our country back on the right path. We need true fiscal reforms that turn our country in the right direction and put us going in the right direction. This falls short of that. The Limit, Save, Grow Act. I did not come to Congress just to increase the debt, but understanding where we were at, we were willing to increase the debt limit a little bit in order to make some real, true fiscal reforms. And so this falls short of a lot of the things we had worked really hard across the conference to get in the Limit, Save, Grow Act. And we've still got some work to do.
One of the biggest disappointments that I've heard as I've talked to different members is the fact that this would essentially establish as the benchmark going forward the post-COVID bloated budgets, where we saw all of this relief spending, $4.1 trillion, becomes part of the baseline.
That's exactly right. One of my biggest concerns is over the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen our government grow to the tune of about 40%. That's significant. That is substantial. And in the tune of saving maybe $12 billion as a best estimate, we lock in spending at those levels and call that the new baseline. And so all the negotiations going forward would be from this overly inflated, massive government. And then we see some of the nefarious actions that are going on with that. We see teachers targeted at school or parents targeted at school board meetings. We see a lot of nefarious actions. You look at what the State Department is doing in country after country after country. I've talked to ambassadors who say, every dollar you spend in our country is going to destroy the family and to undermine Christian values in our country. And, this is not what our State Department is supposed to be doing. We're competing with China right now on a global stage where they're looking at infrastructure deals and those kind of things. And then we're doing all this woke craziness, and countries have been aligned with us and kind of want to still go that direction, but they're stuck with this kind of weird choice that's going on. And so there's a lot of things we need to do to go through our approach process, get rid of this bad, nefarious spending, and this deal, if anything, maybe disincentivizes that approach process as well.
Well, explain that. Why would it do that? Why would it disincentivize the appropriations process? Explain that.
Yeah, there's a mechanism in it for a continuing resolution that would kick in if we did not pass the 12 appropriations bills. The idea there would be that it would incentivize an appropriations process and avoid a government shutdown. But at the current inflated levels, again, the government's grown 40% over the last few years. If I'm a leftist, I would rather keep my woke and weaponized spending at maybe just a 1% less than what it is now than I would like to accept the fiscal reforms and getting rid of a lot of those nefarious actions to the bills that we've been working on in the Appropriations Committee for months. And so, I mean, just a kind of insignificant answer, but it just shows you how this week we're going through a number of bills and found out that our cafeteria here funds an NGO. They pay an NGO to come in and consult on whether we're using plastic straws or paper straws. And that's the kind of how entrenched this reckless wasteful spending has become. We have that throughout our budget, throughout our funding in so many nefarious ways that are certainly much worse cases of what it's doing in our society.
Let,
But that's just an example of the burden we're putting on taxpayers that really needs to be clawed back.
let me go to
And some of the mechanisms in this could disincentivize that process.
let me go to the issue of the woke policies and what we've seen from the Biden administration, what he's been successful in passing prior to the Republicans taking over the House. Would any of those programs or that spending be rescinded?
There's very minimal rescissions in this. So some of the COVID funds would come back and be rescinded. We had looked at clawing back, and we promised. I mean, it was a campaign promise when Republicans were running. Hey, we're gonna defund the 87,000 IRS agents that are being expanded in the and so instead of 80 billion, we're at 1.4 billion. And it's kind of funny the way the numbers work and how that works as to whether we're going to get that. There's talk of maybe a handshake deal that's happened that's not included in the bill. That might be a little more, but if it's a deal, let's put it in the bill, and let's stand for. Let's have a transparent process in it all, and make it work.
So what you just described is just a fraction of
just a
of
small
a cut.
fraction of what we had promised to get done.
Let's talk for just a moment, Congressman Cloud, about the political implications here. I mean, there's been look, I've said this on the program many times, a lot of unity, more so than I've seen in my 20 years here in Washington,
Yes.
among Republicans. That was a very contentious process of electing the speaker. A lot of these agreements were made as a result of that. Is this breaking that faith that had been established, that good faith that had been established between the speaker and conservatives?
Honestly, over the weekend, that's probably been the thing I've been most grieved about, in the sense of a lot of the great work that you've seen happen over the last several months, and the potential for things yet to happen, rests in the fact that we've been able to come together. It's really been a down up process, in the sense of members talking to members. The major great bills we've been able to pass, securing the border, the Limit, Save, Grow Act, some of these things that people thought we couldn't get done have been members working with members to figure out how to get to yes on these sorts of things. And that takes people working together. This particular agreement came down and was very much the old school way of doing things, where you have a deal that's made in a room somewhere, didn't have a lot of input, and we're supposed to take it or leave it. And it just falls short of where a lot of us are on what needs to happen in order to save our country.
Has the conference met yet since you've returned to Washington?
There's obviously a lot of conversations going on between members. We'll be meeting tonight to go over this, and again, people are looking at amendment options and what might be done there as well. All that's very fluid right now, and it's going on right now. We met with the speaker this afternoon, a few of us, about where do we go from here?
And how was that meeting? How would you characterize that meeting?
Well, we have a number of people who, again, it's important for us to be able to work together going forward and get wins for the American people. And you have people focused, okay, well, where are we at now, and how do we get where we need to go? And so, thankfully we have people working on that. It's unfortunate, I think, that we are where we are. I liked where we were a week ago. We're in a very strong negotiating standpoint. 75% of the American people were with us. You're going to find there's not too many issues where you have that percent of the American people behind you, especially in a deal like this. So we're in a very strong negotiating standpoint. Really expected a little bit of a stronger deal out of this.
What do you anticipate will be the atmosphere as the conference gathers tonight?
Lively. Let's go with that. There's a lot of because we've been in such a strong position, because we've seen what we can accomplish when we're working together. There's certainly a desire to kind of keep that going, and to make sure that we're delivering wins for the American people. But we've got to make sure that we honor the processes that are transparent, that are going to be real, not messaging wins, but real constructive wins for the American people. And so I'm sure we'll have some great conversations around that.
All right, Congressman Michael Cloud, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us this afternoon.
Thank you. God bless you.